My guest today is O.W. Root. He is a menswear expert, he is a writer, and he is a father. Today, we speak about the importance of personal aesthetics as both a statement of culture, but also as something that anchors you, anchors your mental health, anchors your self perception, and also represents a guiding light for your family, the people around you, your children, and also the responsibility of that, especially for men, to take control of this aspect of their lives and to kind of make a statement. We talk about this. We talk about the obsession with perfection in the virtual world and how it's led to warped self perception. We also talk about the customization and tailoring and how that's kind of fallen out of fashion and how it should come back. And it is coming back in many ways. And essentially, how embracing imperfection can lead to a little bit more style in your life. So this is a very broad and wide-ranging conversation, not just about fashion, but about aesthetics, about the meaning of life, essentially. And if you want to listen to the whole conversation, please do go to alexkashuta.com. That's my Substack, or go to Patreon for a little bit less. You can just get the podcast. But if you want to go to Substack and support me there, you have access to the community, the archive of every episode, everything I've ever written. So if you can, please do contribute. This is what keeps the lights on, and I deeply, deeply appreciate every contribution. So enjoy the show. So you've covered the whole spectrum of aesthetics, especially with a focus on male presentation, male aesthetics. I wonder what you think is the impact of personal aesthetics on mental health, and how you perceive yourself in a day-to-day situation in relationship to the world. I mean, is it important? It feels like we've become very convenience oriented. People have all these like microfiber sweat wickings, everything's elastic, it's very functional. Athleisure is what it's called. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, but yeah, I wonder, how do you think this affects people's mental state?
I mean, I think the impact of clothing on our mental state and just the way we see the world and how we think about ourselves is, I mean, it's incredible. It's almost strange to even talk about it because it's so obvious. I mean, think about it. You're wearing this on your body all the time. I mean, 24 hours a day. I mean, not 24 hours, but pretty darn close. We're wearing clothes. In our whole lives, we're wearing clothes. Ever since we're a kid, I mean, even when you're like 2 days old, you're wearing something, And so you are wearing clothes your whole life. You are never without them. And so what are clothes? They are essentially this outer shell you show the world. They are how you reveal yourself, what you're really revealing to yourself apart from your face, your personality in a way. And not only does it say something to other people, it says something to yourself as well. And I mean, it's the most obvious thing that when you dress with intention, you feel better. I mean, think about it with anything. When you put a little effort forward, don't you feel better about that which you are doing? I mean, if it's something you like it more, you care about it more. You feel also as if you have a sense of control because you do. And in this way, clothing is it really is so many other disciplines put into one. We talk about a house or cars or architecture or a road or all of this stuff, how this can impact our the way we feel. What about what is on your body? I mean, it's with you everywhere. You exit a room and you go into another room, you still keep the same clothes on. In the way, so the impact it has on your mental health, honestly, and the way that you orient yourself towards the world is incredible. I can't think of almost anything else when it comes to aesthetics that is as personally impactful to you.
Yeah, I think that's very correct. I mean, I've experienced that myself because I've just had two kids in quick succession, and my whole wardrobe was completely disheveled. And I was very much in the athleisure camp just because of convenience reasons. And now I've kind of started kind of dressing myself again like a human being, and it did just wonders for my just for my general psychology, for being, I don't know, for relating to myself and the world as a participant rather than just someone who sits at home and takes care of children all the time. Because a lot of times women, when they have children, they talk about losing themselves, and I think this is a big part of it, because you become this denizen of the childcare environment and you become very oriented towards their needs, and the idea that you're kind of not separate from this, and then you're just in your stretchy pants and your t-shirts and all this type of stuff and your sports bras, and at one point kind of elevating that and saying, okay, I need to carve out this space for myself, it really does wonders. For It's not a big deal, it just takes you 5 more minutes in the morning to maybe consider which one of your dresses to put on, and you're out the door. But that little act of personalization really, I don't know, at least in my case, that did wonders for me.
My wife, we have 2 children, and this is something we've talked about a lot, where you got no time. You're trying to get ready with 2 kids running around. Good luck. It's just absolute chaos. And you also have this sense, this feeling where, oh, am I doing everything I can be doing? Do I have the time to spend on myself? Yes, you do. I mean, do you have the time to take a shower? Of course. So no one questions that. So, and how does it make you feel? Like you said, instead of just you losing yourself, your entire sort of personality and your entire sort of agency into just now being in the childcare parenting realm, you are asserting this element of yourself. And it's also good for your kids. That's what I think. I mean, I think that our kids learn aesthetics from us. They learn style from us. And that's why I think it's really important for guys to care about how they dress as well, because their sons will look up to their father and say, well, how does my dad dress? That's how a dad dresses. That's how a man dresses. And if he looks like a slob, that doesn't communicate anything good. And there are these values that are reflected in our aesthetics. And so once we start to think about it that way, that not only is it about our personal well-being and our mental health, and just that, you don't become a slave when you're a parent, you are a person as well, but you can think about it as positively impacting your children because you are teaching them.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and I think that for us at least, and I think for a lot of people now, especially after COVID, one of the more hard parts of being put together and kind of thinking about aesthetics is the fact that we just don't socially interact as much as we used to. Like for example, my husband and I, we used to work in central London, and we had at least like a level of business casual wear that we had to put together every day and think about it and things like that. Now we both work from home. We're in the childcare environment. It's all very functional, and it just seems like, okay, there's the social impulse to participate and kind of contribute to the kind of common aesthetics of a group of people is out the door. There's no pressure to do it except for ourselves. I mean, we go on like a date night every week, and then we always get put together for that. But outside of that, like, there's not really any sort of social pressure. And I feel like the social pressure is off for a lot of people, especially because the work environment also has gotten quite more casual. Like the tolerance for sweatpants has increased to quite a lot, especially in kind of like tech environments. It's even almost like a status symbol to say that you don't care about these things. I mean, what do you make of this? The change from, okay, being put together, thinking about personal aesthetics is very important as a status symbol, to now hoodies and jeans and your brain in a vat style, startup thinking. I mean, what do you make of this transformation?
I think there's so many layers to this. I think that there is the big, broad degeneration level, where it's just, I mean, culture can degenerate and regenerate. It can ascend or descend. I mean, you can actually have a higher culture or a lower culture, and we can see that moving across civilizations, and you can just see that among people, the values that are essentially upheld by this sort of culture. And there is this broad, I would suggest, degeneration that we're seeing. Now, what is that related to? I think it's related to a lot. I think it's related to COVID accelerated it, but it started way before that. I think it has to do with an anti-aspiration. There's definitely an anti-aspiration aspect to this. I think that there is a technological cyber aspect to it, where we put all this emphasis on the technological tech world, the cyber world, the virtual world. We lose the actual, and we retreat from the real. We live online so much that the real almost becomes less important, and not only from due to work from home, but just our actual identities. And you see people losing themselves in that. VR is just the final step in this sort of movement away from real life. And then this is also related to an obsession with perfection that comes from that technological sort of fake virtual world, where then people give up even trying because they'll never be as perfect as what is in the virtual. So they say, what's even the point? So whatever. And all of this stuff works in sort of a cycle together, and probably some other stuff as well, to bring a culture down where you don't want to try. And yeah.
Yeah, I think, Western countries are very much kind of in the lead for these changes, but you see them here as well in Eastern Europe where I live. And we're kind of known for kind of garish, very brand oriented styles. Even here is still, people who have money. And I guess, people who are like nouveau riche in America as well, they're into the Balenciaga, I don't know, shoes and all this type of stuff. You have that here as well, because here also there is no old money. All money is new money. So obviously people will be acting very nouveau riche.
Yeah.
They're all gonna, trying to be flaunting their bling. The car is very important here. Yeah, but it's at the same time, it is slowly also merging into the online in a very strange way as well. Like, for example, if you are kind of a nouveau riche guy here, this is a trend that I've talked to a few, because I'm like in like a small to mid-sized city here, and there is kind of this stratum of people who have made money, and they date each other, and I go to the nail lady and the salon lady, and they kind of all gossip about this stuff. And it's interesting how important the social and online profiles of these people are. Like, men here actually scout for girlfriends with bigger online profiles, the women who are desired for their the size of their platform on Instagram, or the beauty that they, the number of followers that they have. And it's extremely important to them how desirable their women are online. And this has led to like this booming industry of these med spas with fillers and all this type of stuff. So these women have customized their faces to look really good, similar to Instagram filters, but they look pretty much monstrous, like very uncanny valley in real life, but they do look good in pictures. And this seems to be more important than what they look in real life. It's very, very strange. And it's kind of gone, overnight. All this stuff has happened so quickly here, which is even more scary, because I feel like, at least in the West, you kind of had a little build up to this, it feels. I don't know. It's very strange.
Yeah. Wow. This gets to so much. Technology, the problem of technology. The idea of just globalized technology to begin with, and the sort of impacts of trends, and how this sort of globalized technological fast-paced sort of trend world. You can really talk about the problem of the democracy of the internet, where you'll just lower down to the masses essentially. And so if you are just running on this thing where, the most followers, this is what people like, and you become that in a degenerating society, that's going to go down lower and lower. And like you said, it's really ramped up there, and it hasn't been quite as gradual as perhaps it has been in some of these other Western countries. I think that's interesting because, like you said, there is no old money. All the money is new money. And so there's this sort of race for this sort of signal that. And this is, there's so many things to this. There is the technological thing. There's the global thing. There is, like I said, the problem of the democracy of the internet, the democracy of the likes, like I've said this before. I think I've done a tweet, like the most important tweets have 7 likes, and the dumbest tweets have 45,000, because, and that is a thing about the masses essentially.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see, for a lot of these people, okay, money is one thing, and it's important, especially for countries that come out of, abject poverty. And it's all, for a lot of people, it's been in one generation, just the possibilities have changed immensely. And, there's a little bit of, crime tied into it a lot of times, but just the universe of status has changed overnight. And you kind of have this old world status, like second and third world type of status, where you have all these markers of portable wealth. People live in a shithole apartment, but they have like the newest car. They have like a
Mhm.
Tesla or like a
Mhm.
BMW or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then they, have the clothes and everything. So they want to be, they want to have this conspicuous style consumption. But then you have kind of, it's starting to fade away, that because it is already seen here as like, okay, this is garish. Even here,
Mhm.
people are like, okay, this is not. So
Mhm.
there's a type of like almost second generation rich person, or at least they're trying to be second generation, where they're trying to have these, conspicuous beliefs like we have in the West. So you
Mhm.
have this whole generation of children who have studied in the West, and they're very woke. They're kind of like, Brahmin Indians in the
Mhm.
US. Like they're
Mhm.
the wokest of them all
Mhm.
because they want to
Mhm.
excel at being,
Yeah,
extremely
exactly.
um, ideologically plugged in.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting. So these people are shunning the, they're not wearing the Balenciaga t-shirts, but they obviously have all the important beliefs and they're signaling about that all the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, it's very interesting to see how this changes. But it also kind of is goes hand in hand with a bit more slobification.
Mhm.
At least they're not wearing weird garish t-shirts with
Mhm.
Versace on them.
Mhm.
But the second generation is more like they're Hubermaning. They're like in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
athleisure. It's
Mhm.
all just sweat wicking
Yeah.
microfiber everywhere.
This
So
this stuff. Yeah, this stuff, and this is I think the problem with not having an actual culture of style and then just being pushed around by trends. Because you see this, people, they don't, I mean, the goal really, if you really try to think in a deeper way, is whether it's intergenerationally or it's just you at that moment, it's creating a parallel structure in how you view style and aesthetics that isn't really penetrable, that isn't really being pushed around by other stuff. It has its own internal logic. In that way, it is authentic. It is what you're doing. And it might be, as I say, intergenerational. It might be having to do with other people. It might just be an independent sort of thing. But this is the opposite of, just like you said, the second generation is all athleisure, all just new man, bug man, moisture wicking, hyper, just constant grinding. My wife showed me a video or something on Instagram the other day, and it was some woman who like got up at 3:30 a.m. to like work out and do all this stuff. And my wife was like, I think I was like, I don't think a single person on the entire European continent has ever gotten up this early to do this, because this is just insane grind culture where like she's just, and again, it was all athleisure, all just slick. Everything's boom, boom, boom. There's no time for tradition because really tradition is like hidden in inconvenience. And when you get into like the synthetic stuff, the athleisure stuff, the constant moisture wicking, whatever that is, all this sort of stuff, it's all about convenience. And that speaks to the sort of value of this class where we're not going to be garish, we're not going to be over the top, but instead we're going to spend $500 on this stupid t-shirt that is total synthetic slop, but it doesn't look like it. And it's so efficient or whatever. I don't have to do anything for it. I never have to iron it. Don't have to think about it, whatever. And I also look like nothing as well. There's also this element of culturalness to it as well, where there is absolutely you can't tell where it's from. You can't tell anything about the history or the culture. It is without history, without culture. And that's speaks to this sort of class as well. They're really woke. They want to be right at the front of this sort of running fast at the front of whatever it is.
yeah, I think I know exactly which influencer your wife refers to. She's being pushed on all of us. Yeah, she's she's a
Like,
menace.
what is this? Like, get a grip, lady.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least this woman that I'm thinking of, she wakes up extremely early. She reads inspirational self-help books before her four children wake up, and then it's all just go, 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 and she sleeps for like 5 hours or something. It's a whole thing. I think
Where's
it's
life? Like, where's life?
yeah, I think when you gut the Protestantism of the underlying religious structure, and you just leave the the guilt and the work obsession, then I guess this is what you get. You get mom influencers who wake up at 3:30 in the morning.
I know.
It's not healthy. Um, I mean, there's this kind of trope or tradition of women being involved in the clothing choices of their husbands.
Mhm.
I mean, I wonder what your position is. I think you probably think that men should take the lead on this and they should be aesthetically. I mean, what should the position of a wife be in relation to her husband's style? Should we intervene? Do men take this lightly? Like I personally, my husband works from home, but he's kind of like a Bermuda shorts and polo shirt type of guy. It's great for at home. No one sees him; he's great. But in general, if we're out in the town, he makes an effort. So I think that's fine, and I don't really get involved. But I can see how sometimes maybe it would be prompted for me to get involved. I don't know. What relation should I have to this?
That's such a good question. Wow, what a good question. I think, first of all, for a lot of guys, a lot of guys are starting from a really bad spot. They have never thought about clothes at all. They just don't, A lot of guys have a real toxic relationship with their clothes. They hate clothes. A lot of guys just don't like their clothes. A lot of guys really, if they could have someone tell them and just buy them clothes and say, just wear this, or if they were just required to wear something, they might say that's fine. A lot of guys just don't even want to think about it. So for a lot of those guys, some input from their wife, I think I don't think they give a shit because they don't care, I think I'm sure that for some guys, listen, if they really hated something, she really loved something, you'd have a problem there. But apart from the lowest common denominator, where the guys really, like I said, they just don't like it, they don't care about it. That's a really good question. I think that men, first of all, they should be in control. They should work at this. They should develop an aesthetic taste. Still, though, it's very common to say, hey, honey, does this look good? Does this look fine? That's a totally normal thing. And I think that because more women think more about this, they will have a sharper focus on this, just because they're thinking about style and how they look more often. More women tend to be that. It's just fine. And I think that my wife doesn't say anything to me, obviously, but I think that it depends on the man and woman, but I think that it's just fine. But I would also encourage men to start to care more. Don't rely on your wife. She's already putting enough time on herself. You need to put on some, you know what I mean? She's already putting enough time worrying about what she's wearing, her makeup, her hair, her everything. You need to put in some time here instead of saying, oh, what should I wear, honey?
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Like, it really is a completely distinct aesthetic universe. I know, obviously, color theory,
Oh, yeah.
the rule of thirds, Fibonacci,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I get that that's kind of the basics of aesthetics in general, but it really is a different, like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I would not know how to tie a tie. My husband knows, luckily for him. He's one of
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
apparently few recently people who know how to do it. But yeah, it's there's a whole universe of, okay, what goes with what, the types of materials, the summer, clothing yourself in heat,
Mm-hmm.
linen, pants, cuts on pants, and all this type of stuff. And there's also, a lot of kind of trends that are coming in, and a lot of things like, for example, we're in our mid 30s, so we're kind of stuck in like 2000s type style.
Mm-hmm.
Now obviously with menswear guy on the internet, that style apparently is not, it's not cool anymore, and by this I mean mostly like low cut pants. This is
Mm-hmm.
seems to be an important thing. And I mean, and realistically, looking at all the examples this guy gives online, I do see that, aesthetically, like the proportions are a little bit off
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but not in every case. And I guess a parenthesis here would be, what do you make of menswear guy? Because he's very much like a leftist type of
Mm-hmm.
character as well, which kind of adds to his persona. But yeah, I guess my question is, number one, is there such thing as, should one be having any sort of communication with trends, or is there kind of a golden era of menswear that one should plug into?
Mm-hmm.
Or and then I guess the second question is, what do you think about this menswear guy?
So this is a good question. I think that a really good way to think about things, if you don't want to or I should say it this way. If you are super cool at one time, you will be very uncool at another time.
Aw.
You know what I mean? If you are super right on the front where you're doing everything just like
I was
boom,
so cool in 2007.
then if that at one point in time you look back and say, geez Louise. But if you stay somewhat towards the middle or try to retain a sort of thread of a constant, you will never look that crazy. And I'll give an example with ties. Ties got really skinny in the mid-century, and they got really wide, and then they got skinny again kind of in the 2000s one point in time. But if you stick around about 3.25 inches at the widest point, you'll never really look that crazy because it's right in the middle. It's not really wide, it's not really skinny, it's right in the middle. Same thing with the cut of your say your jacket, your sport coat. It was really big and full, and then it got really slim, the ultra slim fit stuff. If you stay right in the middle, generally, you're basically going to be fine. Same thing with break on your pants. Some guys do really hardcore no break, which is a very cool mid-century thing, and I love that stuff. And then at different times, people really did a lot of break, especially when you go back in time. If you stay right in the middle, just a little bit of break or no break, just very slight, you'll always be right in the middle. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to live your life constantly in the middle. There's something fun about pushing all the way, going in these different directions. That's cool. But if you really want to stay super, just sort of, if you always aim yourself towards that center in a certain sense, you're never going to go super crazy. And if you're asking, is there a time for someone to focus on? Different guys focus on different times. There are guys who are really into the golden era of menswear. We're talking earlier 20th century. Some guys get really into mid-century stuff. Some guys get, got a lot of guys into Miami Vice right now. And so that's sort of impacting the way that guys want to dress. If you just stay toward, if you can take little elements from all these different things, but in general, don't go too wide or too skinny. Don't go too tight or too baggy. If you just sort of stay there, you'll always look pretty good. And as for the menswear guy, he blocked me a long time ago. And so he blocked me a long time ago. That's a classic example. He's obviously like a total leftist and stuff like that, but there's lots of guys like him, and they're guys who are very focused on materialism, very focused on kind of striver materialism, and kind of trying to like get obsessed with pointless details and details that don't really. It loses the greater purpose of menswear, and not just menswear, but just clothing in general. Clothing for men should make men feel good and look good. It should make them feel strong and look strong. That's the point. The point isn't all this little erector set details that just don't really lead to the bigger story. And the problem with people who are really materialist, and you see that in our world in general, they lose the big story, they lose the big truth, they lose the purpose, and they obfuscate everything in these pointless details and minutia. Who cares about, And so when I talk about clothes, I never talk about really expensive stuff. I never talk about that stuff because I don't care about that stuff. I don't care about trying to signal, this $5,000 sport coat. Who cares? Give me a break. It's just, that's fine if you want to do that, if you got money to blow on that. But that's not really kind of aesthetics. That's not the meaning of what we're talking about here in terms of culture and man and style. And so for men, those are the two things they should remember when they're dressing. Do they look strong and feel strong? And do you look confident and feel confident? That's what it should be about.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting whole chapter about men who are really strong, like in the sense that people who go to the gym. I think suits are quite a challenge for people who are very buff. I mean, if you look at, some of the more like manosphere influencers, they look like they're in athleisure even when they're in the suit. They really look like they're gonna burst. So I wonder what type of formal fashion is right for someone who's just,
like that.
I guess you want to show it off, okay, but there's, I guess, a limit to that.
For sure. Well, and this actually kind of comes back to what you're saying about the difference between men and women in style and how we relate to clothes. A big difference with women is that women's clothing does take into account their body in a different way. It is really showing their body in a way that men's clothing traditionally just has not. You are drawing attention to your figure in certain ways, and women know these ideas of how, say, for example, high waist will often be flattering, and you want your waist to look smaller than your chest and your butt, essentially. And so they know, women are already thinking in a way so as to help create this appearance. Men don't have that as much, but they have it to some degree. And this is where high-waisted comes in, where it does help with the proportions. It does help elongate the legs and make you look taller, essentially. And so for the guys who are just buff, they're jacked, one of the things, I mean, a brass tacks thing is they're gonna have to go kind of custom with some of this stuff. For their shirts, they're gonna have to go custom. It doesn't mean it's not that expensive anymore. You can get a custom shirt for $100, and you can get the bicep measured exactly to what you need. They're going to have to accept that unless they're gonna wear just stretchy stuff, it's gonna be a little looser. It's gonna be looser. Your pants are gonna have to be a little looser, and specifically your shirt's gonna be a little looser. And same thing with your jacket, because otherwise you're gonna bust out of it. And custom will help with the pants and the shirt. The jacket, maybe custom too.
Yeah, and you know what I saw recently? I think there's more and more services where you can essentially take stuff that's off the rack
Mhm.
and then get it customized. And I guess,
Yeah.
this is probably just called a tailor, but people just forgot that this is a function that you could just get
Yeah.
the stuff that you get off the rack
Yeah.
tailored.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an option for people who have
Sure.
more unique measurements.
You can do anything. It's not, I mean, whenever I hear a guy say, I can't find anything that fits, that's not true. You can. You absolutely can. You just have to put some time in. Some guys are lazy with this. Women put more time into this automatically. They just are putting more time. And men, for a lot of guys, if they're starting out with nothing, they put like 10 minutes into this. They really haven't thought about this a lot. They haven't really done the research. But if they did, absolutely, there's no guy, there's no one out there who cannot get something to fit right as they want it. It's just going to take a little more time. Maybe finding stuff online. Maybe it's made to order. Maybe it might not be off the rack. You might have to get stuff tailored. That's fine. Big deal. It's just going to take a little longer. Instead of 2 days to get it, 3 weeks to get it. And it's just going to take a little longer. Just put in a little bit of time. And that's why it really comes down to guys caring. They have to start caring about this, and they have to amp it up a little bit. The stupid idea that you don't have to care how you look and that it's dumb to care how you look is idiotic, and it has done so much damage.
Yeah, I think that's very correct. And this is kind of a running theme on the show where there is quite a lot of low-hanging fruit. I know people like to black pill about, especially about dating and how to present yourself and the fact that, women have crazy expectations. I think in some ways they do probably, but there is still quite a lot that you can do to present yourself in a way that's
Yeah.
unique, especially because, there's this general slobification of the
Yeah.
world. And in a sea of athleisure, if you're the guy with the one tailored shirt,
Mhm.
you are already kind of head and neck above the
Oh
competition.
yeah.
And then if you have like one other redeeming quality,
It's like
incredible.
you're like the top 5%, dude. It's like the bar is so low. So often do I see guys. I mean, a classic that I talk about a lot is I see a guy and a girl walking down the street. They're a couple. She's wearing some sort of dress and some sort of like decent leather sandal, and he just looks like an idiot. He just looks so bad. He looks like a child, and he's not even trying. And it's just the asymmetry is just obscene. It's just obscene. And so if you are a guy, if you just, like I said, or like you said, you got one tailored shirt, you got a decent pair of pants, you're wearing leather shoes, not sneakers all the time, you got a decent shirt that's buttoned up, and you just look decent. You just put some effort forward. You have one of the redeeming quality. You are in the top 10%. You just boom, like rocketed right up there like that. And don't get too lost in the extreme details. Make the first steps. Everybody starts somewhere. Like we were talking about before, where people get lost, they want perfection online, like, and then they say, I can't get perfection, so I don't even try. So they don't try to look better, they don't try to dress better, so they just sort of go down. Everybody starts somewhere. Yeah, okay, get the pants, get the shirt, make a step there. Listen, in a year you say, oh, those didn't really look very good. That's okay. You're making progress. That's what it's about. It's about making effort, making progress. And everybody's not going to be a clothes hound. Everybody's not going to be dressed to the nines every day. But where things get better is in those little steps, and every guy just making a little effort.
Yeah, I remember there was this 4chan green text, which I kind of this conversation reminds me of like this one guy who saw the movie Drive, and then he just decided to act like the driver, and then he got like a jacket and it didn't have a scorpion on it, but whatever. It was kind
Yeah.
of like that style bomber jacket, and he tried to be cool and kind of
Yeah.
you know. I don't know, calm and in the style
Yeah.
of Ryan Gosling in that movie. And it apparently, obviously, 4chan green text, it kind of revolutionized his life. And I think that the lesson there is that you need one look. You don't need to have like a whole wardrobe, capsule wardrobe. You don't have to go in the deep end. Just get
No,
one look that you feel comfortable in that kind of gives you the vibes that you're looking for. And then just, go with that for a while, and then maybe you can have a second look, or it's just.
absolutely, absolutely. And why this is even, whether we're talking about it being attractive to other people or just to ourselves, if we talk about how others view us, if you're a guy, you're talking about a girl, a lot of the reason when you dress decent, again, not crazy, but just like you just put some effort forth, it shows a quality that you care to some degree, and that is an attractive quality. People don't like to see people who are just totally don't care, like a drug addict. It's kind of how there is actually something. Let's say you got someone who is just like beautiful, just incredibly beautiful, but they've let themselves go to such a degree they're addicted to drugs, they're all messed up. They are less attractive if they're in descent than someone that is lesser attractive in ascent. Because there's like this sort of like vitalistic sort of thing that we want to see, a sort of vitality there with someone living and trying, and this is a really interesting thing where the entire world is sort of like anti that. That's why this anti-aspiration, anti-trying is so toxic, because the world culture doesn't live, when it comes to style and how people look for guys and girls, it doesn't live in everyone looking like 10s. It lives in everyone looking like 7s. Everyone trying, you know what I mean? Everyone just making their efforts, It's not, oh my gosh, for example, 100 guys who look perfect is worth nothing compared to a million guys who look decent. It's because that's what it's about. It's about trying, and that's what keeps the sort of level going, or some sort of semblance of a society here.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. It's this whole bean counting and the 1 to 10 scale, and everyone just being so like mentally cocked by seeing, I don't know, supermodels and
For
Ryan
sure.
Gosling all day.
Yeah.
It's debilitating, and it's really taking people out of
Mm-hmm.
the position that they're in. You kind of have to start from where you are,
Yeah.
and the only way is up if you make a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
effort. But the
Yep.
idea that I'm never going to be a Victoria's Secret supermodel, well, that ship has sailed since I was born. It's just not my niche. But it is what it is, and then I just kind of have to get myself a little bit better than I am, and then just also enjoy the process and find
Yes.
enjoyment and find joy in the whole idea of it, and not just mentally bombard myself with like black pills about
Mm-hmm.
whatever, who finds me attractive, who doesn't find me attractive. I know it is hard. I mean, I've been a teenager and I've grown up on the internet, and every day being told, this is cabbage soup diet, get your, you need this size, this, your hair looks weird. Like there's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, for men as well. Like whatever, Marvel superheroes, they don't look human. All of this stuff is just unnatural. But you know,
Yeah.
uh, I think maturity also means getting yourself out of that. You're not a child anymore.
Yes.
You understand that the media infrastructure is not there to serve your mental health.
No.
Take a
Ex-
step back.
exactly. It sounds so lame, but just be normal, dude. Like, just step back. There was this hilarious, I think it was Fisher King tweet from years ago, and he said something like, it's funny, everybody online claims to be 6'3", but I don't really see that in real life or or something. And that was a great tweet, because you see all this people, if you interact online, you'd have people believe that unless you're making 800K at 24, 6'4", perfect jacked, all this stuff, you're just not gonna make it. You're toast. You're cooked. Like, what world? This is a masochistic sort of world that is really unhealthy, honestly. And you just got to get out of that world and realize that that's not real life. And some people are addicted to that masochism. I think they want to be sort of beat down. They don't want to try in a way. They want to feel sad, and that's really toxic, I think. And I think it does impact guys and girls.
Yeah, and it really, I think it's comforting in a way, to know that you're absolved from trying, because it
Mm-hmm.
really is so hard. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just you can't get to that level. And it also, gives you someone to hate. Like I feel people underestimate the psychological importance of, the peace that you get from just understand. It's like, like communism. It's, there's that what was a Mystery Grove tweet. It's just like, the
Yep, yep,
ugly dysgenic freaks
yep, yep,
just
exactly.
figuring out how to position themselves towards the world, and they
Yep.
just, hate everyone else. And it's really psychologically comforting, and that's kind of the natural resting place for someone who's like feels like they've been slighted by fate. And I
Mhm.
think a lot more people, because of the internet, because of their overexposure
Yeah.
to perfection, now they're like, okay, I also inhabit the the dysgenic freak.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you hate whoever else you think slighted you more. And obviously with
Yes.
manosphere, you got the women, you
Mhm.
got the Jews.
Yeah.
Someone's getting to you, and it's it fulfills an important psychological
Yeah.
role. But I also hope that people mature beyond this,
Mhm.
mature beyond finding, the
Mhm.
ultimate foe online, and then,
Mhm.
take control of their life and just make that one little step, get a decent shirt, people.
And that can change so much. It really can. And something something I think is interesting, I think about a lot, which is related to exactly what you're saying, is the phases people go through online and the phases people go through in life. And you kind of see people, whether it's they're into politics, whether they're into just online, whatever, you can kind of see people who are in this stage of really being angry, really pissed off about stuff. And maybe they're deep into politics and they're just really so black pilled about everything and they're just constant. You can see where they are. Then eventually you kind of get to this point, or you should get to this point. Most people do who are stable people to a degree. They get past it and they realize, yeah, stuff's messed up, but you've got to make an impact where you can make an impact. And you start to become a little more stable. You start to feel a little more control over your life, and you try to actually think about benefiting the world rather than just being mad at the world. And I think that it's interesting to see people trying to move through that or moving through that. And I think that how when people don't try, they just sort of, I can't be perfect, so I'm just going to get worse and worse and worse. So much of that, it's like a snowball. They're rolling in that direction. But if they would just move past that, or if they're on the top of a mountain, instead of rolling that way, just rolled toward trying, their whole life could be different. It's like you see these tragic videos of people who they're like 19 and they look normal, and then they get all into this screwed up LGBT crap, whatever, and they are just like miserable. They look terrible like 10 years later. And I just think, what happened? I mean, what happened? And I sometimes call these people victims of liberalism in a way, because they just got screwed up.
Yeah, but you know what? There are victims of conservatism as well, especially
Oh,
the flavor of online.
oh yeah.
Maybe not
Listen,
conservatism, but right wing politics for sure.
I agree completely. Listen, I'm completely on board with you there. Obviously,
Yeah, no, I
100%.
think the internet itself is just like an extremely effective like demon delivery mechanism for people, especially if something's a little bit off. Like for example, I had the luck of growing up kind of relatively without the internet until I was about in my early 20s.
Mm,
And I just didn't get seeded with demons as early. But
mm-hmm.
like, I had all sorts of, I was pudgy in middle school. I had like a lot of like trauma from people, bullying me and things like that. If I had the internet there, I could have plugged into some, like, maybe all of this psychological turmoil that I'm feeling is because I'm actually a man, or I'm, I have to adhere to whatever, subculture that is going to, give me solace in that moment. Maybe I could be a school shooter. Who knows? Whoever
Yeah.
thinks is I'm nice enough to show up in their group. Yeah, I'm kind of lucky that I didn't have that, but now this is ubiquitous, and I could see why it's so much psychologically easier to just plug into something like that that just kind of
Yes.
gives you a solution, gives you community, it gives
Yeah.
you digital hugs for
Yeah.
whatever problem you have.
Exactly. And it's this, I call it group therapy sometimes, also on the right as well. The sort of like really black. It's weird to even call it the right, honestly. When you think about this, I mean, it's weird to even call it the right.
Non woke,
Yeah,
non
yeah,
woke
not more.
internet.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, what exactly is right about just talking about being like a loser, not being able to do anything and whining about it and not really, you know what I mean? Just a sort of perpetual obsession with, with creating your own misery. That's what it is. Creating your own misery. A lot of misery is created by ourselves. People want to feel bad. They want to feel sad. They want to feel, like you said, they want to hate someone. They want to blame it all on them. They want to say, yes, everything's against me, blah, 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 blah. And if you give them any solutions, they say, oh, that's not going to help. That's not going to, if you say, try this, that's not going to do anything. And they want to stew in that world, whether it has to do with the war between the sexes, relationships, just the world, life in general. I wish it was like this. I wish the modern world of 2024 wasn't as screwed up as it is. Yeah, we all do. But what can you do right now to try to make it better or make your life better? But when someone doesn't want to hear that, they don't want to hear that, and they're in that spiral. They're in that downward spiral, and there's so much of that on the right. Even, is it fair to even call it the right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's, like we said, overexposure to perfection is one thing, but I
Yeah.
think just overexposure in general, because the internet just serves you whatever you're interested in. If you're interested in, whatever, Black kids beating up white kids, there are millions of videos. And not to say that this is not a common phenomenon, it is quite common, but it's not a million videos a day, which you can watch every day, just constantly being fed to you. And it's like, or Crisis at the Southern Border, you can watch that all day, or whatever you're interested in, or, women being psychotic. Look at that. Or I don't know.
Yeah, I saw this. There's a video of this woman. Sorry to interrupt. Here,
Yeah,
go
sure.
on.
No, that's it. No, that's all I'm saying. But it's just like the exposure to this stuff. Even if you're just interested in it tangentially at one point, the algorithm will sense this. Like, for example, I was on Instagram, and because I'm a young mother, I was like, I watched this video of someone having, their child dies. And then I was like, oh my God, how did the child die? And I watched the whole video. Obviously, the algorithm understood that, oh, this woman loves child dying videos. So I just got child dying videos for like months after that. And it just like psychologically tortured me.
You're like, I need a new account. I need to delete my Instagram.
I had to like block words related to this because I'm like, okay, I was interested because I just wanted to know why I died. I want to protect my children, but it's like, this is not the kind of content I want to see.
That I want.
So yeah, it's a machine for your demons. It just constantly just feeds them.
That's such a good way to put it. A machine for your demons, and it does just feed them. And that's the negativity aspect of it, because like you said, you can search out all these things, and you can see how people get in this loop. There was this video recently, and it was of some girl talking to a guy, one of these on the street videos, and basically she was just a normal girl. The guy was like, how much money does a guy need to make to whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she was just normal. She was like normal. There's a ton of girls like this out there. She didn't give some absurd number at all. Just a very, very normal person. People acted like it was like the strangest person on planet Earth. I'm like, where do you people live? There are so many people out there that are normal. Like, every single girl is not some... they're not expecting you to make $400,000 a year. Like that's not how every girl is, and that's not every guy isn't like this, and But these people, they live in this loop. They want to watch those videos. They want to get pissed at people. They want to get pissed at. And when I watched this video, I just thought, this is just a normal person. But the reaction was making it seem like she was some extremely rare archetype, and she just is not. If you live in the real world, if you actually talk to human beings, and normal people,
Yeah, I mean, normal people are very jarring to memes because memes are always focused on this category of people are extremely this, and if you're just like in the middle of the road, like, this is absurd.
Where
does this person come from?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like, she's not a gold digger. Is she ugly? No, she's not ugly. What? This is absurd.
I know.
Totally. Yeah, it's just the nature of it, and I think people also don't understand that there is no value on the internet to show you, the middle of the distribution. It's always going to be the tails of any sort of distribution. It's always going to be the most wretched things in the world, especially because anger seems to be the most effective emotion to get people to act, to buy, to whatever, to click. And then on the other end, you're going to see the most, exotically beautiful creatures and all of this stuff. And it's just a land of extremes, and, building any sort of model of the world from what all the slop you see online is really absurd. And even slop that confirms your biases. I have to say, even slop on this podcast. Take it with a grain of salt. Not this episode, though, obviously. Present company excluded, but
No, I mean, you're so right, because you see this a lot with, people always post this stuff. Everyone wants to act like they're super rich on the internet. Everyone acts like they got a bunch of money, and so it's just like, okay, all of you can't be rich. All of you cannot be making this much money. And same thing with the posting of everything's beautiful, everything's disgusting, everything's unattainable, or everything's awful. And I think that this place of actual human beauty, in the actual beauty, I think that this is where we need to get, especially in the age of AI. I talk about this sometimes. We need to be embracing the human more, the imperfection of life, the beautiful imperfection of life. We're not, if you're trying to be a human Wikipedia, if you're trying to be perfect with no past or no mistakes or no anything, you're not going to make it, because you can't be that, because you're a human with an actual story. And that's what we need to embrace. We need to embrace story and the beautiful imperfection of life lived with spirit and with a sort of artful approach and with sort of livingness. And this is where the sort of death of reading anything that isn't just trying to command your eyeballs interfaces with the rise of things that are just trying to command your eyeballs and speak to how much you hate something or how much you aren't something. And people lose all the actual beautiful story. They can't, they're no longer feeling these human feelings, almost, in a sense. They're almost feeling the algorithm, and that's very sad.
Yeah, it really kind of forces people to kind of instrumentalize their day-to-day experience. Like every moment has to have a certain purpose. Like you can't just live and can't just kind of, wallow in the sensation of living in the little tragedies of life and
Mm-hmm.
all of this. You kind of try to numb yourself to the peaks of life, and
Mm-hmm.
then you always live for tomorrow. It's always like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, money that you make tomorrow, health that you have tomorrow. You have to, look at the horizon because it helps your whatever pineal gland secrete this
Mm-hmm.
hormone and makes you sleep 30 minutes longer and all of this stuff. It all kind of adds up. But what exactly for? Like, what are you going through these motions for? Like, are you going to enjoy it tomorrow? No, no, no. Tomorrow we also have to stare at the horizon, do your thing, push-ups, microfiber, whatever's really
Microfiber
important.
push-ups. Yeah, you got to be grinding constantly.
AG1.
Yeah, you're not gonna make it NGMI unless you're blank, 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 blank. Like,
Exactly.
what?
No one will want you. No one will love
No,
you
yeah,
if you
you're not
don't
gonna make it.
correspond.
This
You're
is
mid.
you're no, these things, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And I really try my best to put out a positive thing and not contribute to this, because I just honestly think about what I want my kids to consume on the internet. I try to put out stuff which would be, when they're 20, reading, you know what I mean, that want them to read, not this horse shit that is not helping people, and like, they're always, like you said, they're where is the space to just live and live with yourself? And it's like a squashing of story. That's the thing. Like, there really is almost this desire to squash story, lower the peaks, turn the contrast down, instead of, people don't want to embrace the drama of life. And it's not just perfect, and it's also not just misery. What is a story? A story goes like this, and you weave, and that's good. That is life, and that is living.
If you enjoyed this conversation up to this point, you will also enjoy the extended version of the conversation, which is over on Substack. That's at alexkashuta.com or on patreon.com/aksubversive. Patreon has just a podcast, and Substack has a community, the back catalog of all my writing, a lot more archival things, a few more exclusive episodes. So it's slightly more of an enhanced version of the show. I really appreciate any sort of contribution that listeners can make. I don't have ads. I mean, except for if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably saw a few YouTube ads. I'm trying to, monetize a little bit on YouTube, but in general, I don't have ads. If you want to listen to podcasts, there are no ads on it. So essentially, subscriptions is the only thing that works, and I really, really do appreciate if you could make a contribution. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.